want to do is just set the scene a little bit of where social prescribing fits into a wider programme that we're pushing for personalised care in the NHS. And actually, when you look at how well we're doing in respect to various approaches to personalised care, the stats show that we're doing reasonably okay in some areas, but not so well overall. For example, 43% of people don't understand the health information that they're provided with. That's been an ongoing issue for quite a long period of time. 43% of people with long-term conditions say that they don't really have the skills, knowledge and confidence in order to manage their life in the way that they want to manage it. And only 43% of people are involved in decisions that affect their life in the way that they would like to have been. And those stats are obviously really easy to remember, which is really, really helpful. But you imagine, if I ask you the question, to raise your hand if you'd like to be excluded from decisions that affect the most sensitive and intimate parts of your life, how many of you would raise your hand to answer that question? And it's quite striking, isn't it? Because in the health service, in certain circumstances, we're clearly not involving people to the extent that they would like to, and the extent that they need to be involved in order to make the decisions that best affect them. So personalised care, what is it? Well, personalised care for us is ensuring that people have choice and control over the way their care is planned and delivered in a way that's meaningful for them, based on what matters, and importantly, builds on the assets and strengths that they bring to their own care. Because whilst clinicians will always be experts on diseases or conditions, people are experts in themselves. I mean, we've all lived with ourselves since a long time. Since before we were born, actually, we've been living with ourselves. So, people with long-term conditions have developed a huge amount of expertise, but we don't necessarily tap into that. So what we're trying to do with the personalised care agenda, and the reason that we put this as one of the 5 key shifts for the service changes that need to happen across the NHS, is we're trying to change the relationship that people have with their own health and care, but also trying to change the relationship between them and the system, trying to move them from being passive recipients of services done to actually being active participants in their care. And the really strong body of evidence that's growing is demonstrating that personalised care is having really significant impacts both on individuals in terms of improvements of their health and well-being, but also on the system and opportunities to save costs and reduce demand. And I'll go into some of those in a little while. So, universal personalised care then is part of the NHS long-term plan 5 key shifts. It's right in the middle, which is a great place for it. And you'll see there, I mean, everyone will recognise these shifts, hopefully anyway, in terms of boosting out hospital services, looking at that divide between primary and secondary care, the digital-enabled work that we need to do, the embracing of technology to enhance the service, redesigning emergency use, looking at outpatients as well, but move to population health. So personalised care sits alongside these things, and it's central to the development of primary care networks. We've put the delivery of the comprehensive model for personalised care into the primary care contracts. We've made that a requirement. We've also built the requirement for delivering personalised care into STP requirements as well. And we've been working for a number of years to really design what we mean by personalised care. So this isn't the case, and actually Lord Health mentioned this, that social prescribing isn't a new thing. Personalised care isn't a new thing. We've not suddenly developed lots of new ideas in NHS England and said to the system, now get on and do this. What we've done with our latest document, which is called Universal Personalised Care, is provided, I think, honest brokerage. We've observed what's going on across the country over a period of time. We've worked in local communities with people on the front line that are designing, delivering these services. And we've collected the best of all of that activity. And our document effectively just provides a blueprint for what works best, what we've observed works best in the system. And that's led to the development of this, which is our comprehensive model for personalised care. Now, whenever I put this up, I always have to make a joke that this is really complex and there's far too many words on it, but it has been co-produced, so it's not my fault. This has been work that everyone else has input into. We've had a significant number of people working on this, and I can't emphasise that enough. Over the last 2 years, We've worked with thousands of people, people with lived experience, GPs, occupational therapists, commissioners, people, real people in the system, and we've harnessed just the things that they've been doing in their local areas. And what this has shown us is that there are a number of interventions, when deployed to certain sections of the community, they can have really significant impacts, really, really positive impacts. And we've then looked at, well, which are the things within this sort of toolkit of approaches to personalised care are going to have the biggest impact on the system. And we've settled on 6 items, which I just wanted to go into a little bit more detail. So these 6 things are really emphasised in this document, which is even more complicated, but this is our operating model. So the operating model, whilst it looks quite complicated, there's lots of stuff going on there. Actually, this is quite a simple vehicle to demonstrate just how personalised care can work in a new primary care network setting and in a new system. So it always has to start with shared decision making. So every clinical conversation between patient and clinician should be on the basis of sharing that decision with them. We tend to overestimate the benefits and underestimate the harms of care and treatment. And when shared decision making works, the evidence, which is long-standing now, it demonstrates that you can reduce expensive and risky treatments by up to 20%. So we're talking about, trying to tackle the over-medicalisation, trying to tackle the unnecessary procedures that people go through. And shared decision making can do that. And we're looking to document tools for shared decision making in 30 clinical conversations. We started with MSK, we're working on CBD, we're working in dementia, diabetes, but looking through how we can use shared decision making in those contexts. So that's the starting point. And really that's harnessing this fantastic new technology that enables us to find out what matters to people, find out how their care and treatment is going to be best deployed, finding out who's important to them within their care setting, finding out the sort of issues that are affecting their lives at the moment as a consequence of the condition that they have. And that fantastic technology that we've got in the NHS is called conversation. So we're trying to embed that right at the beginning of that approach. Beyond that, we need patient choice. So in the same box, we should be ensuring we're making good on our commitments to give people choice over the treatment options. Now, whether that's using the legal rights for choice in elective care, or it's expanding choice in other areas. There's no legal right at the moment for women to choose where they have a baby, and we're wanting to do that through our Maternity Pioneer Programme, increasing choice and control for women in maternity. So choice, is the second component. We've got to share the decision, then give people an active choice. For people with long-term conditions, on the right-hand side, personalised care and support planning is key to this, and it's key as a route into social prescribing. Social prescribing works best when we're really finding out what matters to people and we're constructing it as part of an ongoing plan. If somebody turns up at their GP practice and they're presenting that they're lonely, the GP directly referring them to a befriending service to counter their loneliness won't necessarily work. We've got to sit down, we've got to find out what matters to that person, because it may be that actually the cause of their loneliness is they're in debt. So they need debt management advice. Because if they sorted their debt out, they would have the resources to connect with their friends and connect with their community that they've lost touch with as a consequence of their spiraling debt. So finding out what matters to people, undertaking a plan is incredibly important. So proactive care planning. And then we have 3 things that really are the key to, I think, a new revolution in the way in which we support people. The first is social prescribing. And obviously we've heard some fantastic examples of how arts can really impact on people's health. Social prescribing gives us a great opportunity to improve both health and wellbeing outcomes for individuals, but also the working environment for GPs. Around 60% of GPs say that it's given them a improvement in their work-life balance. It's saved them time. And a lot of GPs that are really embracing social prescribing now really see the impact not only on their patients but also across the whole practice. What we're doing to enable this to happen is importantly fully funding link workers through every primary care network. So we've set a target that there will be at least 1,000 new link workers over the next 2 years. Realistically, we think that's going to be exceeded, and we have a working assumption that we'll be providing one per primary care network at least, which is about 1,300 or so. But over the next 5 years, we want to significantly expand the number of link workers so that we can support around 1 million people. We've said 900,000 in the long-term plan. We think we're going to be able to support around 1 million, if not many more people. And by that point, we'll have probably around 4,500 link workers. And again, these link workers will be fully funded. You know, we've not only made the commitment to personalised care being important, but we've fully legitimised the concept of social prescribing by weaving it into the fabric of the primary care contract with full reimbursement, 100% reimbursement for those link worker roles, which creates that infrastructure that's required to make this happen at scale. The second box, the middle box there, is about supported self-management. So alongside social prescribing, back to the stat around 43% of people not having skills, knowledge, confidence, we need to put in measures to improve that. The Health Foundation last year did a significant report into PAM, patient activation measurement. We've heard a lot about DES earlier on today. We'll talk about PAM now, PAM and DES together. PAM is patient activation measurement, and actually it's a really, really simple tool that has 13 questions in that benchmarks somebody's activity level, all their skills, knowledge and confidence. And people at PAM level 1 with the lowest skills, knowledge and confidence, if we can move them to PAM level 4 with the highest skills, knowledge and confidence, there is hard evidence now of reduction in GP attendance by 19% and reduction in hospital admissions by 38%. And how we get them from PAM level 1 to PAM level 2 is by using social prescribing, by using peer support, by connecting people to health coaches, by sending people to the opportunity of structured education. You know, we found that structured education for diabetes is incredibly supportive. So deploying those things to boost that skills and knowledge in people is really helpful. And then the final box is personal health budgets and integrated personal budgets. And I know a number of you in this room are part of our demonstrator programme, or in demonstrator areas where we're working across a third of the country now to spread this model. And there's been some fantastic work on personal health budgets, including in Gloucestershire on wheelchairs, for example, and many other parts of the country looking at mental health, looking at continuing health care, looking at support for people with a learning disability, support for people with frailty. Personal health budgets now are on rapid expansion. We've got just over 40,000 people receiving a personal health budget. Our ambition is to expand that to 200,000 people over the next 5 years. 86% of people say that the personal health budget has improved their quality of life and enabled them to achieve the health and wellbeing outcomes that they were looking for. But importantly, and for some people in this room, 17% cost saving against the cost of delivering traditional services. And that comes from 3 things. So if you look at continuing healthcare, very traditional contracted services done to the person, and then you look at the opportunities of personal health. Firstly, people are able to buy the same things but cheaper. So somebody employing their own personal assistant rather than going through a care agency, it just saves money. But also, as Robin Chappell, who's part of our strategic co-production group, would tell you, if she was here, she would talk about the fact that before she had a personal health budget, she had on average 38 carers a year. On any day, she was faced with a stranger turning up at her door to provide the most sensitive and intimate care, following a riding accident which left her tetraplegic. So 38 carers on average. She now has a team of 4 that have been with her for 3 years. A team of 4 that relate well to her. She still likes horse riding, and she was getting sent carers that were terrified of horses and allergic to animals. She now has carers that really enjoy horses and enjoy her pursuits. So not only has it improved Robin's quality of life because she has carers that she can relate to, it's also saved the system money, but actually for the workers that are providing that care to Robin, it gives them a much better quality of life because they're able to go to work and do something that they enjoy. And there's lots of connections like that that are happening. I was speaking to a young lad a few months ago who said to me, look, I've not got anything against middle-aged women, but I don't want to go out on a Friday night with someone that looks like my mum. and it was quite a startling comment, because you don't think about those things. And what he'd done is he'd used his personal health budget to employ students that were his own age, so that he could go out on a Friday night and socialise with people that were also providing him care. And changing that relationship was quite important. So that's the first way they save money. Secondly, people are buying different things. So rather than a straightforward scenario with a personal assistant providing care, using other more innovative methodologies, so assistive technology coming in quite considerably, improving the wheelchairs, so upgrading wheelchairs so that they've got risers in them, seat risers, so that they move to a standing position. And it may seem like a more expensive outlay initially, but when it saves £20,000 a year that would have been spent on care costs because the person has upgraded equipment, then that's a great thing again for the individual and the system. Also, canine partners, and lots of people using assistance dogs. Jackie Kennedy, another one of our strategic co-production users, has an assistance dog called Kingston. He's a black Labrador that barked at me once, but I won't hold that against him. He's trained in 200 commands, and it prevented Jackie from going to hospital 9 times a year. She was going into hospital 9 times a year, spending 30 days in an acute bed following seizures. Kingston's prevented all of that because he can detect when she's going to have a seizure, warn her, and support her to get into a place of safety, and call services that can support her on call. Saved £137,000 a year. So actually, you mentioned Daily Mail stories, and I've had those. We've had puppies on the NHS. The NHS buying people field with pets. We're not. We're providing people with highly trained specialist support. Just happens to be through a dog that barks at me. And finally, I think the third thing that saves money on personal health budgets is actually they create a really interesting and sometimes quite beautiful psychological contract between the individual and the system. People in this country love the NHS, and actually when we give people that control of the resources that the NHS has, they spend those resources wisely. They make different decisions. They respect that they've got that responsibility, and they need to make the best of that. We produced a really clear summary guide for social prescribing, and again, this sort of distills the best practice from across the country, and linked to this is our full programme of universal personalised care. And those elements that I mentioned earlier, including social prescribing, each of those elements has got a really clear, a specified model behind it. So there's a blueprint of how you should do shared decision making, how you should do PHPs, how you should do personalised care and support planning, how you should do social prescribing. So this is just showing a glimpse of one of the tools that we've put together. And in terms of my team across the country, we've got experts at both a national and a local level. We've got Nick and Pretty here today, and perhaps give you a wave, who are our regional leads and covering some of the national work as well, but have got teams in regional areas that are here to provide diagnostic support, mapping, and expertise on how you construct this model. And then we've also got national experts like Bev on social prescribing, and people on personal health budgets and all the other components that can come in and provide that specialist advice, including Sue and a team, Sue Bottomley and her team, who are specialists on contracting and commissioning, and how you actually meet the challenges that you've been talking about. So you could spend some time with you, which would be really good. I've covered all of this anyway. I'll just leave with that slide, which is based on the experience that we've had so far. I suppose just very quickly then to summarise, personalised care growing importance. Our plan is to reach 2.5 million people over the next 5 years, to double that over the next decade. Within that, plans for social prescribing, 900,000 people at least over the next 5 years, 200,000 personal health budgets. These are big shifts from where we come from, which is a fairly zero starting base over the past few years. But we're really confident it's achievable. We're putting the funding in for social prescribing to create that infrastructure. We've got all of the national support tools now ready to be deployed, and any assistance that you need, and the teams here today, but also in place to support you on the journey. I suppose my tip would be, don't start off on the basis of trying to invent this stuff yourself, because it already exists. We've got all of the tools. And whilst there's a temptation to say, well, the people of Stockport are different to the people of Portsmouth, we have got tools that are ready and can be adapted for all local circumstances.